The ending of the Teyvat chapter is something that I have been thinking about a lot recently, and not for the reasons you might first suspect. Here, how about I ask you this? What motivated you to click on this video, and why are you watching right now? Well, obviously because you like or are interested in Genshin's lore and story, that much is a given. This is why you watch lore-centered videos like this one, to engage with the story, learn more about it, and better understand it, all so that you can, ultimately, see the story through and witness how it ends, right? Except, we already know how this story will end. Because its developers told us how from the beginning, or at the very least, gave us a really strong indication of what the ending will look like. The Teyvat chapter will conclude right here, in the Sea of Flowers, the final destination of the traveler's journey, and when the traveler somehow, someway, eventually reaches this place at the very end of the world, they will face off against their final opponent, Dainsleif, the Twilight Sword. There will be no Archons, no Dragon Sovereigns, no Paimon, and no twin sibling. Only the fourth descender whose nature defies fate, fighting a human soldier who rebelled against his fate for the right to reweave the threads of destiny. But to properly understand the hows behind what will happen, we must first know the whys, and know them we will.
You who has set foot in this world. Your journey has reached its end, but one final doorway remains. Step forth if you have understood the meaning of your journey. Defeat me, command me to step aside. Show me that you are worthier than I to rescue her. Then, the threads of all fate will be yours to reweave. My memory has all but faded completely, but I will always remember how much she too loved these flowers.
Since the Primordial One and the Traveler are two of Teyvat's four descenders, being the first and fourth respectively, it is safe to assume that the two share a reasonable portion of their powers and abilities. Thus, we can, and should, utilize some of what we know about the first descender to further our understanding of Aether and Lumine. One of the most prominent symbols of divinity on Teyvat is the Triquetra, as it is found on demon gods such as Paimon and Asmodee. But the Triquetra isn't exclusive to Celestia's demon gods. It is also associated with the three Moon Sisters and, by proxy, the angels who served them. And apparently it's a symbol of the ancient dragons as well, since it can be found on the Hydro Dragon Sovereign Novelette. But regardless of its origins in Teyvat, the Triquetra has long been a symbol of unity throughout human history. Today, it is most commonly used to represent the Christian God, the Holy Trinity, also known as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Trinity is very much relevant to Genshin's cosmology in his own way. However, there is another application of the Triquetra from Chinese mythology, specifically Taoism, which can grant us unique insight into what Hoyoverse's developers are trying to do with Teyvat. The three pure ones, or the three purities, are the highest gods of the Taoist pantheon, believed in some traditions to hold dominion over fate. See, that's already something important to the traveler. Each of the three pure ones represents a different aspect of Qi, or life force. The first pure one, Yuan Qi, is the heavenly Qi, the second, Ling Bao, is the human Qi, and the third, Dao De, is the earthly Qi, where the unity of these three is regarded as the purest manifestation of the Tao. A strikingly similar concept to the Taoist three pure ones can be found in Ikebana, a Japanese art of flower arrangement developed by Zen Buddhism, which itself was influenced by Taoism. And that matters to us because Dainsleif and the Traveler will fight over the world's fate in a literal sea of flowers. You see, much like the three pure ones, the structure of Ikebana relies on three primary components known as Shin, Tai, So, or heaven, earth, and humanity respectively. These elements are visually represented by carefully placing branches and flowers in a balanced triangular structure symbolizing harmony and the interconnectedness of all existence. I actually learned of this cool Japanese art only recently from volume 48 of Sakurako's monthly booklets, and you can find many more such facts about Japanese culture and history in the booklets provided by Tokyo Treat and Sakurako, which is perfect as they also happen to be the sponsors of this video. If you're looking to try exclusive and authentic Japanese sweets, snacks, teas, and desserts, freshly made in Japan and delivered straight to your door, then Tokyo Treat and Sakurako are two of the best options out there, since their mission is to bring you the best of Japanese snacks and flavors, making it easy to experience them from anywhere in the world. Both Sakurako and Tokyo Treat offer monthly subscription boxes packed with a variety of snacks, each themed around Japan's seasons. Every month, you will get a brand new box with a unique set of snacks based on the theme of the month. For example, they both sent me their February boxes to show you guys, and the theme of this month is all about romance, love, chocolate, and strawberry. Which is excellent because I really love strawberry, but who doesn't, right? Anyway, first up we have Tokyo Treat, a snack box that focuses on bringing you exclusive Japanese sweets and snacks. Many of the treats you'll find inside are limited time releases in Japan, like this seasonal Kit Kat themed around Valentine's Day and love, these Poke Hearts Ramune candies, or this delicious strawberry mochi, which by the way, tastes amazing. Tokyo Treat does a great job of curating the best limited-time Japanese snacks while they're still in production and delivering them straight to you. Alongside their exclusive snacks, you'll also find a variety of casual Japanese food items like these umami seaweed-flavored chips, spicy ramen, and even occasional Japanese soda depending on the month. Of course, you'll also receive an accompanying booklet explaining each snack's important details along with some fun facts about Japan. Now, if you are more like me and prefer authentically prepared pastries, teas, and desserts, then Sakurako is the way to go, and this one is actually really good. Every time Sakurako sends me one of their boxes, they also give me another reason to like them. You see, Sakurako takes pride in their freshly prepared tea, and as a tea supremacist myself, I have to admit, this tea from Takayanagi Seicha in the Shizuoka Prefecture isn't just incredibly aromatic, it tastes just as good as it smells. Sakurako also provides you with the names of all the artisans and local snack makers who prepared the stuff you receive, so that you know exactly what you are getting and where from. For instance, these strawberry-coated peanuts were sourced from Ogawa Foods in Kagoshima. And best of all, with every Sakurako box you receive a specially selected souvenir based on the season and theme. This time around in February, I got this excellent piece of fabric called Plum Furoshiki from Maeda Senko, a dyeing company founded in Kyoto, and although the company has now expanded into more industries, this cute wrapping cloth was the first thing they produced back when they started in 1961. The furoshiki is also made of relatively high quality fabric, so it's very useful if you are into embroidery, which is a perfect coincidence considering some of the topics I will cover in this video. I have nothing but praise for every single item I get from Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. Whether souvenirs, pastries, chocolate, or tea, they all give me confidence in the quality of what I am recommending. Furthermore, Sakurako and Tokyo Treat allow you to pause or cancel anytime you wish if you ever feel like skipping a month, which is something I respect. So, if you want to get exclusive, authentic, and traditional Japanese snacks, use code MYNAMEFORNOW on the screen right now to receive $5 off on your first Sakurako or Tokyo Treat boxes through my links in the description. Thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video, and now, let's get back to Dainsleif and the Traveler. The biggest thing that caught my attention after learning about Japanese ikebana was how the flower arrangements are structured in a triangular format, representing heaven, earth, and humanity. This immediately gave me strong Triquetra vibes when I first read it, though one could easily say that's just my Genshin brainrot making me draw connections to everything I see. So I decided to check ikebana's historical roots, which is when I found out about the domains of the three pure ones in Taoism. Those being heavenly chi, once again chi approximately means life force, human chi, and earthly chi. And that's when I stopped and realized, this sure does sound very similar to what we learned about the ley lines in Chenyu Vale. And what special group of gods happen to be the masters of the ley lines on Teyvat? The Descenders. Pay attention, this is about to get really cool. Fate is one of the most influential forces in the story of Genshin. However, fate on Teyvat is not some kind of mysterious force that pushes people through their predetermined destinies. Instead, fate on Teyvat is a system. with its mechanisms largely governed by the stars and constellations of the false sky in the heavens, as well as the ley lines and silver tree networks in the earth. And the two are connected. Or at least that's what the Ratawahisk Darshan of the Sumeru Academia believe, according to what Layla tells the Traveler. Now, humans, the puny creations of the first Descender, are sandwiched in between these two major components of Teyvat's fate system, and are thus not only subject to, but also part of the heavenly principles' overall natural order. The way I like to think about this structure is through the very thematically fitting egg anatomy, where the firmament is the eggshell, or maybe the inner membrane, while the ley lines are the yolk. So the humans who live on Teyvat would be located somewhere in the albumen. Do keep in mind that this is just a simplistic analogy I like to make and not a model to be taken seriously.
The heavens control human fate like a puppeteer controls a marionette. So, the inauspicious stars themselves do not have free will. But once I seal their power inside of a doll and bind it with animal bones, the residual thoughts within the bones allow them to develop awareness. I call these, little creations Chichimime. You can think of them as manifestations of the inauspicious stars.
We know that Teyvat's system of fate is a combination of heavenly and earthly components thanks to the shamans of Natlan's Masters of the Nightwind, who can obtain divinations from the ley lines akin to how astrologists divine fate from the constellations of the starry sky. The constellations of the false starry sky, to be specific. This is a topic I previously discussed in my video about angels and fate, which is probably one of the best videos I've ever released on this channel. The definition of aging like fine wine, because just a few weeks after it was published, Citlali was released and she directly confirmed a lot of what I said there, especially when it comes to the Mictlan's usage of obsidian mirrors to divine fate through the reflection of the soul, since the soul is ultimately connected to the leyline realm of the Night Kingdom, where the souls of the ancestors and angels are found.
This doesn't feel like a divination technique from beyond this world. My school of shamanism relies on the earth rather than the sky. When the fake inauspicious stars show their teeth, I bind them with the spirit of the earth, the bones of dead animals, and the power of the obscuring smoke.
Now, in my aforementioned Angels and Fate video, I highlighted the interplay of two rocks, or gemstones, utilized by Hoyoverse's writers to convey certain themes between Genshin and Star Rail. The first is obsidian, which of course is a naturally occurring volcanic glass with a predominantly felsic composition formed by the rapid cooling of high silica lava, and is thus deeply symbolic of the earth, as shown by how obsidian is the predominant rock found in the Night Kingdom, on the Wyob's totems, and in many of the Mictlan's tools. The other rock, in quotation marks, that I discussed was jade, and in the interest of time, if you want the full explanation behind what I will say, then feel free to watch that video. But the gist of what I arrived at was the fact that while obsidian symbolically represents fate in the ley lines of the earth, jade represents the fate written on the starry sky. Jade, both in Genshin and Star Rail, is associated with stars. For instance, the ancient dragon Ajdaha is famous for saying, "A star appears within the wild, a sun ascends as bright as jade." Ajdaha in this quote is most likely referring to the star that fell upon the chasm in the ancient past when Morax was yet young. And the people of that area who eventually migrated to Chenyu Vale performed a ceremony known as the Sacred Rain Jade Rite, where they threw jade into the waters, transferring its adeptal energy into the spirit veins of the land, which is a fancy way of saying that they supplied the ley lines with energy using Sacred Rain Jade. Also, you know how I have been saying that jade is symbolic of stars and fate in the sky? Going back to the three pure ones of Taoism, the first of the three, representing the heavens, happens to be known as the honored lord of the primordial origin, Yuan Shi Tianzun, the jade pure one. Yuan Shi was followed by Lingbao, representing humanity, and Dao De, representing the earth, with all three believed to control time and in some traditions were embodiments of the past, present, and future respectively. In other words, fate. All in all, the point I'm trying to get across here is regardless of how you look at it, whether you want to use rocks and minerals or Taoist philosophy, Hoyoverse's writers seem to have established a fate system based on the Triquetra structured components of heaven, humanity, and earth. The same system which I suspect the heavenly principles applies to Teyvat. What's poetic about all of this is that the location where Teyvat's fate will eventually be decided at the very end of the world perfectly, and I mean perfectly, reflects everything I have been talking about. This place is virtually empty. All that can be seen in it are the starry sky and the sea of flowers, the heaven and the earth, the constellations, and the ley lines. But there is one more component needed for the Triquetra of Fate to be completed. If the heavens are the primordial past while the earth is the unknowable future, then where is the present sandwiched in the middle between the two? The present is right now and right there. It is humanity. It is the traveler and Dainsleif who will battle in the sea of flowers beneath the starry sky for the fate of Teyvat.
みんなの声が聞こえる。
正解は暗く孤独に果てはない。あるものが己を灯した時、宇宙に初めて光が差した。
I'm gonna be 100% real with you guys. To me, Ualtekutin was by far the biggest highlight of the Incandescent out of Resurection. She hard carried the scenes she was in and basically saved the quest because I wasn't very, let's just say, impressed by the rest of what was going on. On that note, the mantra that Ualtekutin offers to the traveler's ancient name, "In the beginning there was darkness, until someone set themselves aflame, only then did the universe know light," is a modified rephrasing of the very first lines in the opening chapter of the Bible. That's chapter 1 of Genesis, verses 1 to 3. In other words, 1, 1, 1 to 3. And it reads, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light.' And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." The fact that the first 5 verses from the opening chapter of one of the most, if not the most, influential books in human history serve as the basis for the traveler's mantra, as the basis for the chant of their ancient name, is really intriguing for a variety of reasons, including some foreshadowing of the traveler's role and purpose in Genshin Impact. In Simulanka, the traveler plays the role of a witness to Anya's story, almost as if the traveler's purpose is to gather memories, to gather history. But for what? Well, what else could it be than to reweave the threads of destiny in their final battle against Dainsleif at the very end of the world? But perhaps this too is why Dainsleif takes on the mantle of the Bow Keeper and gathers the memories of Teyvat. The traveler is portrayed as a collector of the world's memories through the experiences of their journey, and as a keeper of memories, they are a historical record. In fact, Zhongli outright likens the traveler to a record through which he can preserve Teyvat's history. And the reason the traveler needs to be the keeper of Teyvat's history is because, in a fitting irony, at the end of the world's story, they are destined to become the author of its sequel, the master of all fate. The actual practical application of this idea in the game becomes a lot more apparent when we look at it from a philosophical perspective. And bear with me for a bit here because I'm going to combine aspects from both Taoist and Eastern Orthodox philosophies, since this is where I think the developers are going. Not to say that I am absolutely correct, what they have will likely be more sophisticated, but this is the general direction they seem to be going in. The Japanese art of Ikebana inherited from Taoism the harmonious framework of creation's interconnectedness, embodied in Shinso Tai, a reflection of the Taoist concept of San Cai, the three powers, Tien Rin Di, heaven, humanity, and earth, manifestations of the Tao, which is the natural way of the universe. Now, between the three, humanity is the odd one out, so let's take it out momentarily. Since Yualtikuten effectively quotes the opening line of the Bible when she bestows the ancient name Tumaini to the traveler, I want to examine heaven and earth from an Eastern Orthodox perspective, as both Christian and Taoist philosophies complement each other pretty well in the context of Genshin. The duality of heaven and earth can be seen as the duality of chaos and order, where the heavens are the chaotic primordial origin in its most raw meaning, while earth is the structured order of existence. But the catch is that unless you have awareness of them, you can't differentiate between the two. There is no such thing as chaos and order unless they can be perceived, because reality inherently presumes someone who can experience it. And this is where humanity comes into play. Humanity is consciousness. And going back to the opening lines of the Bible from which Tumaini's mantra is derived, consciousness, or in this case a specific consciousness, the Holy Trinity, God, is what lies at the border between chaos and order. This consciousness is conceptualized in the New Testament as the Word. And the Word is the Son, Jesus, and Jesus is the Holy Trinity, since he claims, I and the Father are one, while John writes in chapter 1 of his book, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, in this video right here, I go over how God in Greek is also known as the Logos, which in Genshin is the first descender who is represented by the crown of logic, or the crown of reason. So given that logic is the consciousness which emerges at the border between the primordial chaos and the structured order, what is the first thing that God says? He says, "Let there be light." And then there was light. This first light is often represented through the imagery of the rising sun at the dawn, that which emerges right at the border between heaven and earth. This idea is found all over the world, across vastly different civilizations from the Middle East and Europe, all the way to the Far East in China and Japan. Aside from being known as the land of the rising sun, the imagery of sunrise plays an integral role in many aspects of Shintoism and Japanese philosophy. Which finally brings us back to Genshin Impact, because in Western alchemy, and actually several traditions of Eastern alchemy as well, the sun is the symbol of gold. Can you guess who else on Teyvat is also associated with both the sun and gold? If you're thinking of Zhongli and Rheindotter, then you are on the right track, but the ones most relevant to this video are the Traveler siblings, Aether and Lumine. They are the keepers of Teyvat's history, the consciousness which brings ordered existence out of the primordial chaos and into clarity, the will of a humanity which stands beneath the fate scattered across the constellations of the starry sky in the heavens, and above the fate intricately woven in the ley lines of the earth. So aptly represented by the sea of flowers, a sea of life sprung forth by the order of nature. In much simpler terms, and without any linguistic nonsense, the Traveler is on the path of becoming the author of Genshin's next narrative, which will be based on the logic of the new creator, the rising sun, the bringer of light, life, and death. But there can only be one sun. And so, if Dainsleif, a human, hopes to challenge a descender, then he too must become a star to pluck out the other one and rise as the sun, the only star in the morning sky. So it is no wonder that Dainsleif is the one who narrates almost every single collected miscellany of Genshin's characters. He became the Bowkeeper to collect the memories of Teyvat, to preserve the history of the world, so that one day, somehow, someway, when this lonely knight eventually reaches the Sea of Flowers, he can rightfully challenge the Traveler, and perhaps save his slumbering mistress at the very end of the world. Although only one of the two siblings is classified as a descender, depending on which one the player chooses, both Lumine and Aether should be almost identical in nature, as the only true major difference between the two is that the Abyss siblings' history exists within Irminsul and the ley lines, making them part of Teyvat. The Traveler does not have this restriction. They are not subject to the laws of Teyvat's fate system, be it the false sky or the ley lines. Now, of course, from a practical standpoint, environmental and social factors come into play. Since the Traveler exists within Teyvat where everyone and everything around them is subject to Celestia's fate, they too will somewhat be influenced by it through their surroundings. But the point is that if anyone can change Teyvat's fate, then it's the Traveler. This was a major plot point in the 2025 Lantern Rite story, where Morax tells the Traveler that their inability to connect to Liyue's ley lines also meant they could not be obfuscated by them, allowing the Traveler to essentially resurrect Hu Tao after she sacrificed herself to subdue death within the ley lines. But the Traveler isn't really independent of Teyvat's ley lines, well, at least not anymore. They are not part of Teyvat's primary ley line network, which runs through the entire continent and connects to Irminsul, hence why they were able to pull Hu Tao from Liyue's realm of the dead while bypassing the rule of death. To put it bluntly, the Traveler is basically scamming fate. Since the ley lines are not aware of the Traveler, they are able to take something out of them, like a random Hu Tao for example, without offering anything in return. They just absorb some death, that's it. However, the Traveler is part of Natlan's ley line realm, the Night Kingdom. Their memories and history are preserved there along with their ancient name, Tumaini. Therefore, even though the Traveler isn't recognized by the planet's primary ley line network, following the Incandescent Ode of Resurrection, they have become part of Teyvat's overall ley lines. I wonder if this means Yuvaltikutin is like the Traveler's little mini Nahida, because Nahida is the avatar of Irminsul and Yuvaltikutin is the Lord of the Night Kingdom. By the way, this claim isn't entirely baseless, since Ororon, who is from the Masters of the Nightwind, who are in turn the closest tribe in Natlan to the Night Kingdom and the Lord of the Night, mentions how some of the Mictlan's rituals, such as their dream reading techniques, are simpler versions of Lesser Lord Kusanali's abilities. Then there is the fact that Iktomi swords have the same mouse select thingy that Nahida has. On that note, while they were restraining the lost souls who escaped the Night Kingdom due to the damage inflicted by the Abyss, Citlali mentions how the Traveler's soul rivals that of the angel Yuvaltikutin. And Huitzilin later confirms that the Traveler's connection to Yuvaltikutin and the Night Kingdom is the strongest in all of Natlan. This tells us that even though the Traveler is a foreign entity to the ley lines, once a connection is established, their potential surpasses nearly everyone in Teyvat, save for the strongest of gods. Aether and Lumine's ability to form such a powerful connection with the Night Kingdom has to do with it being a realm of dreams and memories, as Yuvaltikutin describes. You see, Huitzilin also tells Citlali that the Traveler is someone who can naturally see the color of memories, which is how they were able to form a connection with Citlali and find her inside Huitzilin's distorted domain. This ties back to what I discussed earlier with the Traveler representing one of the three aspects of the Triquetra, the Taoist Sansai of heaven, humanity, and earth, which can be further streamlined into heaven, consciousness, and earth, or chaos, consciousness, and order, where the Traveler is the will or consciousness who weaves the threads of fate. These threads of fate that Dainsleif is talking about are almost certainly the ley lines. We know this thanks to Caribert, who became the prototype for the Abyss Order's Loom of Fate during Bedtime story. For he who controls the memories of the world also controls its future. As for the weaving method itself, it depends. For one, the process may unironically be similar to embroidery or hand weaving, because when Huitzilin created her memory maze during the Battle of Seven Colors, the connection between her compatriots' memories was her thread and needle, and the color of those memories was the fabric she used. However, other people and civilizations have developed more refined techniques for weaving fate throughout history. The best example of this are the Remurians, whom I believe came the closest to recreating the true structure of Teyvat's fate system. The Remurians refer to fate as Fortuna, describing it as being woven from countless fibers. But instead of fabric, those fibers were like the strings on a harp. Boethius, who was one of Remus's 4 Harmosts, divides the music of Fortuna into 3 categories. One is the Musica Mundana, another is the Musica Humana, and the third is Musica Instrumentalis. These categories are collectively inspired by a classical philosophical concept known as Musica Universalis, also called the Music of the Spheres, which originates from the work of the ancient Greek polymath Pythagoras of Samos, and suggests that the movement of celestial bodies produce an inaudible mathematical harmony which reflects the divine order of the universe. And if we are to examine the Lemurian musical categories further, it becomes obvious that they follow a reoccurring theme in this video, as they overlap significantly with the Chi domains of Taoism's 3 pure ones: heaven, humanity, and earth. Just as a quick reminder, since I know that it can be hard to keep up with all the information in this video, those Chi domains are important because they likely correspond to the mechanisms of Teyvat's fate system, with the constellations, heavenly principles, and ley lines. Additionally, the Japanese art of Ikebana discussed earlier inherited those 3 components in the form of Shin Tai So, where flowers and branches are arranged into a triangular structure representing their harmony. Very reminiscent of a Triquetra, if I would say so myself. I can't believe this video exists thanks to a random fact I read in a Japanese snack box, but here we are. Anyway, Boethius writes how the Musica Mundana is the music of the origin, the beginning and end of all music. From it does all spring, and to it shall all return. So the Musica Mundana represents the harmony of the cosmos or heavens. Next is the Musica Humana, the music of humanity, which, as you would expect, represents the harmony that governs the human soul, body, and mind, linking the spiritual and physical aspects of existence. Boethius says that the music of the mortals and gods are no different from one another, and both can be classified as Musica Humana, for their essence is that of the harmony produced by the Musica Mundana, striking the quality of the soul. He then explains how the Musica Humana can replace the Musica Mundana. Of course, the Musica Humana represents the human or consciousness aspect of Fate's 3 components, which I have reiterated throughout this video. It makes sense for the music of the gods and humans to be the same, since the one who will represent humanity in the Sea of Flowers at the end of the world will be either Dainsleif or the Traveler. And while Dane is a human, the Traveler is a descender, a god. Furthermore, the one who currently governs the human aspect of fate, the consciousness, the reason, the logos of the world, is the heavenly principles, who is also a descender according to Boer. Oh, and if you have even a shred of doubt about what I'm saying, then just know that the heavenly principles is literally called destiny during Genshin's beta. Now, Boethius chooses not to elaborate on the Musica Instrumentalis, saying even lowly slaves are able to understand it, but we can safely assume that it corresponds to Earth, given the striking similarities that the first 2 have with heaven and humanity. There is also the fact that within the Musica Universalis, the Musica Instrumentalis is the harmony of the physical world and the instrumental music we perceive with our ears. The primary reason for why I believe Remus and his people had the most optimized understanding of Teyvat's fate and its mechanisms lies in the fact that they considered it a musical symphony, an exceptionally noteworthy detail when you take into account how poetry, music, and song are the domain of the 3 moon sisters, Aria, Sonnet, and Canon, who were Teyvat's 3 goddesses of fate before their fall. And since music and song are associated with the Moon Sisters, then it's only logical that they're associated with the angels who followed those sisters. Angels such as Sibylla, angels such as Nabu Malikata, angels such as Yualtikuten, the mistress of the Night Kingdom. Before that one guy goes in the comments and says, "Oh, yeah, the Lord of the Night is not associated with music and songs." Yes, she is. Natlan's ancient names all come with a mantra, which is basically a chant, like a battle chant. Those chants are granted by the Wyob who serve Yualtikuten, and Yualtikuten herself gave the Traveler to Maini's mantra. On that note, as a descender, I don't think the Traveler's method of weaving fate is through embroidery or singing. Rather, I believe it is more appropriate to think of descenders as authors who write divine words into reality. So the Traveler would be an author in the same sense as the Holy Trinity, from whom the Word comes, and who is himself the Word, the divine consciousness at the border between chaos and order, the rising sun between heaven and earth. This analogy holds for two main reasons, which have hopefully become abundantly clear at this point. First, the Holy Trinity fits perfectly with the divine symbolism of the Triquetra on Teyvat. And second, Tumaini's mantra, which was given to them by an angel, is directly inspired by the opening lines from the Bible's first chapter. Now, what kind of implications does this have on Arya, Sonnet, and Canon? A lot. It has a lot of implications, but I'm gonna save them for another time. This video is already ultra complicated as it stands, and I still haven't addressed how the heck Dainsleif plans to challenge a descender like the Traveler for the right to reweave fate. Keep in mind, this descender not only has borderline unrivaled compatibility with angels, which implies a similar connection to the Moon Sisters, but also can scam the ley lines and naturally perceive the color of memories. On paper, the odds are completely stacked against Dainsleif when it comes to who can control fate better. So, what does he plan to do? First, that depends on whether Dane even wants to reweave the threads of fate, as we still don't know the full extent of his objective beyond wanting to save his mistress. However, him wanting to save her does not necessarily mean he seeks to become a god, assuming such an entailment would be fallacious by definition. Nonetheless, let's entertain the possibility of Dane fighting the Traveler to reweave fate for the sake of this theory. In such a scenario, how could he possibly hope to match the might of a descender? Funny enough, Dainsleif has a legitimate way of accomplishing this godlike feat. There exists a precedent for him to equal a descender if he indeed chooses to go down that path. As a matter of fact, out of all the characters on Teyvat, he is the only one who has been perfectly set up for such an outcome. And this setup has been with us since the very start of the game. At least spiritually with us since the start. It was always in the hearts of our computers, not necessarily in the hearts of the players though. You see, after completing the story quest Troublesome Work, Lisa gives the Traveler the first volume of a story called The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies, an obvious reference to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The full story consists of 7 volumes in total, with the remaining 6 being still unreleased to this day, despite existing in the game files ever since 2020. Which makes me think that we will get the other 6 volumes from each of the 6 Pygmies one at a time. The narrative of the Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies is quite simple. It tells of 6 treacherous pygmies from the faraway land of night, who betrayed their master, the Prince of Light, by killing him and then dividing his power amongst themselves. And if you read The Pale Princess, the fairy tale makes it very clear that the 6 Pygmies are Dainsleif and Conria's 5 sinners. The same evil sinners whom Dainsleif is hunting down. Hroptatyr, Reindotter, Vederfalnir, Rerir, and Sortalogi. Now, the fact that Dane is hunting these 5 sinners from Conria's Eclipse dynasty is what strengthens the possibility of him challenging the Traveler for the right to reweave fate. Because once you understand what these 5 are based on, you will realize their primary purpose is not as characters. They are supposed to be a video game mechanic. If you are to examine the character designs of major Conrians in Genshin, such as Thrain and Peruer for example, you will notice that they tend to be partly inspired by characters and concepts found in From Software's Soulsborne series. The mastermind behind this series of games, the legendary Hidetaka Miyazaki, has spoken on multiple occasions about how his work incorporates major elements from 2 primary stories. Berserk by the late great Kentaro Miura, along with an OVA called Angel's Egg by the legendary Mamoru Oshii. When it comes to the Angel's Egg, I have discussed it many times on this channel since Hoiverse's writers also use it in their narrative, most obviously in Star Rail's world of Penacony, which is full to the brim with references to the Angel's Egg. Teyvat too is heavily inspired by Angel's Egg, something that will become much more apparent during the Conria chapter. As for the big one, Berserk, Miyazaki's games tend to feature an overarching questline objective in which the main player character is compelled into hunting down a group of extremely powerful beings in order to kill them, extract their power from their bodies, which is usually their soul or their life force, and then offer that power to unlock the final boss of each game. In Dark Souls, the Chosen Undead goes after the Lords. In Dark Souls 3, the Ashen One goes after the Lords of Cinder. And in Elden Ring, the Tarnished goes after Marika's demigod children, as you are watching me do right now with Morgoth. The link to that video is in the description if you want to see the full process in action with more explanation. These groups of antagonists in Miyazaki's games are collectively based on 5 extremely evil characters from Berserk, known as the God Hand, where the 5 fingers of this God Hand are together symbolized by the eclipse, and in the manga's story they act as executors to the will of the primordial god of the abyss, the idea of evil. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots and figure out that Berserk's God Hand, who are 5 in number, follow the god of the abyss and are symbolized by the eclipse, also happen to be the main source of inspiration behind the 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah's Eclipse dynasty, who along with King Ermin were seduced by the power of the abyss. And the one hunting them down in Genshin is none other than Dainsleif, the man who for the sake of his mistress will challenge the traveler in the Sea of Flowers at the very end of the world. Once again, we don't know Dane's true goal. However, according to the fairy tale, the 5 sinners poisoned the Prince of Light and stole his power. But before his death, the prince cursed them to never see sunlight again. This is a very similar narrative structure to Miyazaki's stories in the Soulsborne series. When the Pale Princess first meets him, the prince tells her that he came from the Kingdom of Light on the other side of the moon, which doesn't definitively tell us who he is, but what we can infer for sure is that this guy, whoever he is, was tremendously powerful. So in the future, if we end up killing one of the sinners and Dane is the one who retrieves the power they took from the Prince of Light to quote-unquote keep it safe, wink wink, then we can be certain that the Twilight Sword will be going down the Dark Souls Miyazaki path of gathering the power of his mistress's lover to change the divine order of the world, to become a star that can replace the sun, to fight the traveler for the sake of rewriting the constellations in the sky and reweaving the threads of all fate, for the sake of his mistress in the Sea of Flowers at the end. As for who Dainsleif's mistress is, well, who else could she be other than the Princess of the Moonlight Forest, the Princess of the Angels, the Pale Princess. Good lord, this video ended up being 20 minutes longer than I intended, but I shouldn't be surprised at this point, I always do this. By the way, keep in mind that until after we meet one of the 5 sinners, we can't be sure of what Dane really wants. For instance, his objective in the Sea of Flowers could be to rid the entire world of all the gods so that humanity can reign supreme. Or it might be something else entirely. This is left to be seen. And I truly wonder who will win between him and the Traveler, because it really could go either way. I also want to once again thank Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring this video. They are both excellent options if you are looking to try out authentic Japanese snacks. Check them out in this video's description and feel free to use code MYNAMEFORNOW for $5 off on your first order and support this channel while you're at it. On that note, huge thanks to everyone who also supports this channel on Patreon, and thank you specifically for watching till the end. For now, I've been MyNameForNow, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.